You know how every neighborhood has that one person? The one who thinks they're the queen of the block, the self-appointed sheriff. The person who believes the HOA rules were personally engraved on stone tablets for her to enforce. Yeah, we had one of those. We called her Karen. And this is the story of how Karen cut down a 150-year-old oak tree on my property, destroyed her own house in the process, and then had the audacity to sue me. Spoiler, it didn't end well for her. Setting the scene, I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood that, on the surface, looks like one of those places you see in real estate magazines. Big yards, white picket fences, kids riding bikes, and dogs barking happily. But behind that postcard-perfect picture, we had a homeowners association, the dreaded HOA. And at the center of it, like a spider weaving her web, was Karen. Karen wasn't officially the president of the HOA, but she might as well have been. She walked around with a clipboard, took pictures of people's lawns, and sent out snarky, friendly reminders about trash cans being out a few minutes too long. I usually ignored her. I kept my property in good shape, and I wasn't looking for trouble. But trouble has a way of finding you when Karen is involved. Now, on the back edge of my property stood a massive oak tree. It was at least 150 years old, older than the entire neighborhood itself. This tree was magnificent, towering branches, a wide trunk, and deep roots that stretched far in the ground. It wasn't just a tree. It was history. It provided shade in the summer, a home for birds, and even a swing my kids had once played on. And most importantly, it was on my land. Karen, however, saw it differently. One day, she marched over to my yard, hands on her hips, lips pursed tighter than a vacuum seal bag. "That tree is dangerous," she announced, as if she were delivering a royal decree. I raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Karen, that tree has been standing here longer than both of us. It's perfectly healthy. Karen shook her head like I was some clueless child. Branches fall during storms. It drops leaves into my yard, and it blocks the view from my kitchen window. It needs to come down. HOA policy says trees that pose a nuisance can be removed. I laughed. Karen, HOA doesn't own this tree. It's on my property. The only policy that matters here is mine, and my policy is the tree stays. That should have been the end of it. But with Karen, nothing is ever that simple. Over the next few weeks, Karen started campaign. She brought it up at HOA meetings. She sent me letters citing safety concerns. She even had a so-called tree expert come by and take photos without my permission. Every time I pushed back, I even had my own certified arborist inspect the oak. He said it was in excellent condition. I sent that report to the HOA. Case closed, right? Wrong. Because one Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of chainsaws. I rushed outside in my pajamas, heart pounding. There, standing smugly in my yard, was Karen supervising a group of guys with chainsaws. They were halfway through cutting into my beloved oak tree. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. Karen turned to me with that condescending smirk she always wore. "Relax. I hire professionals. The HOA voted. This tree is a hazard. We're doing you a favor." "A favor? This is MY tree on MY property. You can't just..." But before I could finish, I heard the sickening crack of wood splitting. The tree, weakened by their cuts, groaned like an injured giant. And then, whoosh, crash. The oak toppled, not into my yard, not even into the street. It fell directly onto Karen's house. The sound was deafening. Shingles shattered, wood splintered, windows exploded. Her roof caved in like a soda can under a boot. I stood frozen, mouth open, watching as dust filled the air. Karen screamed. The chainsaw guys dropped their tools and bolted. And I just stood there thinking, well, karma doesn't usually work this fast. Within hours, Karen's yard was a circus. Neighbors gathered. The fire department showed up. Police arrived to file a report. And through it all, Karen ranted and raved. "This is your fault," she shrieked, pointing a finger at me as if I had personally pushed the tree onto her house. "You knew it was dangerous. You refused to remove it. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I stared at her in disbelief. "Karen, you cut down the tree. On my property. Without my permission. And it fell on your house. How in the world is this my fault?" She didn't care. In Karen's world, logic had no power. Sure enough, A week later, I was served with papers. Karen was suing me. According to her lawsuit, I was negligent for not removing a known hazard and was therefore responsible for the damage to her home. She wanted me to pay for repairs, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so stressful. I immediately hired a lawyer. Luckily, I had the arborist report proving the tree was healthy. I also had witnesses, neighbors who saw Karen hire the chainsaw crew. When the court date came, Karen strutted in like she was about to win an Oscar. She had binders of evidence, aka blurry photos of leaves in her yard, and a dramatic speech prepared. She went on about how the tree was a menace, how she had no choice but to act, how I had ignored HOA policy. Then it was our turn. My lawyer calmly presented the arborist's report. He showed property maps proving the tree was firmly on my land. He called witnesses who testified that Karen organized the entire removal. And finally, he played a video. One of my neighbors had filmed the whole chainsaw fiasco on their phone. There was Karen, in full HD, standing in my yard, directing the workers and declaring, "We're doing you a favor." The judge's face was priceless. When it was over, the ruling was swift. I was not responsible. Karen had trespassed on my property. Karen had destroyed my tree. And Karen was liable for all damages caused to her own house. Oh, and she owed me the cost of the tree, which, as it turned out, was valued at over $50,000. The look on Karen's face when the verdict was read, I'll never forget it. She looked like someone had just told her Starbucks stopped serving pumpkin spice lattes forever. She tried to appeal. She lost. She tried to rally the HOA. They wanted nothing to do with her after that. In fact, several neighbors thanked me privately for standing up to her. Apparently, she had been terrorizing the whole block for years. In the end, Karen had to sell her damaged house at a massive loss. She moved away, leaving behind nothing but gossip and relief. As for me, I planted a new oak tree. It won't be 150 years old in my lifetime, but maybe someday, long after Karen is forgotten, it will stand tall again. Closing. So that's the story of how my HOA Karen tried to take down my tree, destroyed her own house, and then tried to sue me, only to end up losing everything. Sometimes, the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. And if there's one lesson here, it's this. Never underestimate the power of karma, especially when chainsaws are involved.